Imagine waking up one morning to discover that the very thing your nation's money depends on the anchor behind every paycheck. Every savings account, every government budget had simply vanished. Not physically stolen, not mined out of existence, but erased with the stroke of a pen. And the moment it disappeared, the world realized something terrifying. It never understood how fragile its own financial system truly was. This isn't a sci-fi plot, 'tis happened. And when it did, the global economy discovered a weakness so deep, so quietly embedded in the foundations of modern life, that we're still living with the aftershocks today. Because the day the gold vanished wasn't really about gold at all. It was about power, trust, and the illusion of stability. Stay with me, because the story you're about to hear doesn't just rewrite your understanding of money. It may reveal how close we are to repeating the same mistake again. To understand the day gold disappeared, we need to step back into the world that existed before the modern financial era, before digital money, before inflation charts, before central banks controlled the pulse of entire economies. For centuries, societies believed something simple: money needed to be backed by something real. Something you could weigh, hold, and protect. And nothing symbolized that security more than gold. Gold had a reputation nearly unmatched in human history. It didn't rust. It didn't decay. It wasn't easy to find. It was the perfect anchor on assets, so reliable that empires rose and fell on their ability to control it. Fast forward to the 20th century, after 2 world wars and the birth of a global American superpower. World leaders created a financial arrangement known as the Bretton Woods system. Under it, every major currency was tied to the US dollar, and the US dollar was tied to gold. On paper, it seemed brilliant. Countries could trade freely without worrying about chaotic currency swings. Nations had a single point of reference, and the United States, sitting on 2/3 of the world's gold reserves after World War II, acted as the world's financial anchor. But hidden underneath the optimism was a dangerous truth, one that few policymakers wanted to acknowledge. There wasn't enough gold to back all the promises being made, and one man in particular would be forced to face that truth head-on. President Richard Nixon. His decision, made during a moment of economic crisis, would change the structure of global money forever. But before that decision, the warning signs began to appear quietly, then loudly, then all at once. Bretton Woods was built on a simple rule. $35 would always buy 1 ounce of gold. No matter what, no exceptions. But that system relied on an assumption that the United States would always have enough gold to exchange for all the dollars circulating around the world. And for a while, it did. America was the world's factory, creditor, and technological powerhouse. Other nations trusted the dollar because they trusted America's economic might. Then came the cracks. Crack 1. US spending exploded. The post-war boom brought unprecedented prosperity, but also massive spending on highways, on benefits, and critically, on wars like Vietnam. The government was spending dollars faster than it could back them. Crack 2. Other nations became stronger. Germany, Japan, and others rebuilt faster than expected. They exported more, innovated more, and earned more dollars. Soon, massive amounts of US currency were sitting in foreign banks. Crack 3. Countries wanted to cash in, seeing America's spending spiral. Foreign leaders started to wonder, what if the United States can't honor its promise? So they began demanding gold in exchange for their dollars. One by one, ships carrying stacks of American currencies sailed to US ports, asking for the physical gold owed to them. The outflows were staggering. The world was calling America's bluff, and America was running out of time. By the late 1960s, something unprecedented was happening. The United States, once the world's gold fortress, was bleeding its reserves at a pace that threatened to collapse the system entirely. Imagine the panic inside the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. Gold reserves were dropping every month. Nations were lining up to demand redemptions. The value of the dollar was being questioned globally. Inflation was quietly heating up at home. Behind closed doors, US officials realized the unthinkable. They were promising more gold than they actually had. Economists called it the dollar overhang. Politicians called it temporary pressure. Insiders called it what it truly was, an unsustainable illusion. The Bretton Woods system had become a ticking clock. and the alarm was about to go off. August 15th, 1971. A quiet Sunday evening. Most of the world had no idea what was coming. President Nixon appeared on television in a surprise announcement that would later be known as the Nixon Shock. With calm confidence, he uttered the words that would reshape global economics. I have directed Secretary Connolly to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Temporarily. That was the key word. It softened the blow. But the truth was immediate and irreversible. The United States was ending the gold standard. Overnight, the dollar was no longer tied to anything physical. The world's financial anchor was gone. And in that moment, global money transformed into something entirely new, something based not on metal, but on trust. A trust that would soon be tested. Fallout, how the system unraveled. The effects were immediate and dramatic. 1. Currencies went wild. Without gold as a stabilizer, exchange rates began fluctuating like never before. Some soared. Others collapsed. Chaos entered global markets. 2. Inflation surged and consumer prices exploded. As governments realized there was no physical limit on money creation, many printed more to cover debts, fund programs, or stimulate growth. For ordinary people, this meant rising prices, shrinking savings, and eroding purchasing power. 3. Wealth moved from savers to borrowers. Those holding cash lost value. Those with debt suddenly benefited. A quiet shift in wealth distribution began a pattern that is repeated to this day. 4. Governments became addicted to easy money. Freed from gold, politicians discovered a new power. They could spend far more than they earned. Debt skyrocketed worldwide, but the short-term benefits kept them hooked. The world didn't collapse, but it changed, and not always for the better. In fact, much of the economic turbulence of the 1970s and 1980s oil shocks, inflation crises, currency wars can be traced back to that single moment. Because when gold vanished, so did the constraint that forced nations to remain disciplined. The world tried to restore order, but every fix came with problems. The Smithsonian Agreement, an attempt to repeg currencies, failed within 2 years. Floating currencies, a system where exchange rates are determined by markets. Better than chaos, but exposed nations to constant volatility. Central bank coordination meetings, treaties, and interventions to keep markets stable. Helpful, but always temporary. Interest rate manipulation, a powerful tool, but one that often causes as many problems as it solves. Every solution treated symptoms, not causes. The core issue remained. Money was now backed by confidence, not reality. And confidence is fragile. You might think this is all ancient history, something relevant only to economists and historians. But look around. The same pressures that broke the gold standard are building again. Worldwide government debt is at historic highs. Some nations owe more than their entire economic output. Inflation has returned in ways economists said were impossible a decade ago. Countries are once again losing trust in global currencies. Some are hoarding gold. Others are turning to digital alternatives. Some are exploring entirely new types of money. And the most striking parallel, a growing belief that the financial system is built on promises that cannot all be kept. Just like in the late 1960s, the world is starting to ask uncomfortable questions. How real is our money? What backs it? What happens if confidence disappears again? History doesn't repeat perfectly, but it rhymes loudly. So what do we learn from the day gold vanished? Takeaway 1. Systems fail gradually, then suddenly 4 years. The warning signs were clear, but they were ignored until the crisis was undeniable. The same pattern shows up across history, from empires to markets to currencies. Takeaway 2. Stability is often an illusion. A financial system can look solid while quietly eroding. Trust can disappear faster than governments can react. Takeaway 3. Money is ultimately a story we agree to believe, whether backed by gold or not. Money only works when people trust it. Once that trust is broken, everything else follows. We are living in a moment of rising debt, rising uncertainty, and rising questions about the future of money. The last time this happened, the world shifted into a new financial era overnight without warning. The question is not whether the system will change again. The question is when and what will replace it. If you want to understand the forces shaping the next global economic upheaval, the hidden mechanics, the repeating patterns, and the decisions being made right now behind closed doors, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs to understand the world beyond the headlines, because the story of money is still being written. And the next chapter may arrive the same way gold vanished quietly, suddenly, and with consequences no one expects.